This is Moving Soulward, the podcast about growing a business at the intersection of strategy, spirituality, and self-care. We're your hosts, Katie McLaughlin, your Be Good guide, and
Maria Spiralis, the Lunar Lawyer. We love a good inspirational story, but we're not interested in just profits or bottom lines. Though don't get us wrong, those things are important.
in Moving Soulward, expect to hear conversations with entrepreneurs who are at all different stages of building a business, with two important things in common. Success means something different to each of them, and you don't have to sell your soul to get what you want.
Prioritizing stillness, systems, energies, and service are all valuable and necessary parts of mindful entrepreneurship. Now grab your favorite card deck, a warm mug, spark up a candle, and listen in.
Hi, Maria.
Hello.
I'm excited to do another conversation today. I feel like after we did the spiritual hygiene one, we were just like, oh my God, there's so many things that we want to talk about in this space. So yeah, I'm excited to be doing another one today.
Yes, me too. This is fun because we literally have no script or questions planned. It's just a conversation on what do you think about this?
So speaking of that, let's talk authenticity. I feel like this is a word that comes up so much in this space of healers and experts and small business, and now is becoming something on the larger scale of I don't know about you, but I've seen so many social media managers or social media marketing companies on Instagram start posting about the value of being authentic on your, that's the new thing, right? Like you have to show up authentically. So I want to chat about what this means to you. How do you connect to your authenticity? And like what we think about this as part of a way of working, right? So how does authenticity play into work? So I guess we'll start. I would love to know how you think about authenticity. Like what does it mean for you to be acting in an authentic way, authentically showing up for yourself, for your business? Give me your rundown of just your musings on authenticity.
hmm it's the interesting thing is authenticity is like one of my core values. Like I can pick up on when I think someone is being fake, and that's an instant like something that I feel in my body. So authenticity to me is showing up as your true self, using your voice in a way that is not forced, that is not what you quote unquote should be doing, but in a way that is aligned with you and what you are all about, and not something that, and some kind of external force or factor is filtering everything through.
Yeah, 100%. That makes sense. Like that there's a level of it's like what you're exuding instead of what you're shielding, I guess is how I visually would see that. If someone is exuding themselves in an authentic way, like that, you pick up on that energy instead of someone who is like trying to hide that authentic self with some mechanism, some mask, some whatever, like you feel that shield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. You can always tell when someone is not genuine, right?
Mhm. I think I like that you said the word genuine. I think that there's a nuanced difference between authenticity and being genuine. And I think there's also an element of self-confidence, self-expression. So the way that I think about it is if someone is living in authenticity, that could be different than them maybe even showing up in certain situations authentically.
Mhm.
So I think first there's like that connection with self. Do you know who you are? Like if you don't know who you are, I think it's very difficult to live authentically, right? So I think that there's an element there, and I see it as sort of like an outline. I visualize it, and I need to make this visualization. I visualize it as imagine an outline of a human body. And when someone feels authentic or it feels like they're living authentically, it feels like there's their inner glow or inner magic is like exuding outward like an aura and it's radiating, right? There's a feeling of that connection and that I don't know, it feels like there's this just like impenetrable energy, right? And then someone who is maybe wavering on that, maybe is like has a mask on in certain situations, it feels like maybe that glow fluctuates. Like maybe it shrinks a little in certain situations, like inside the body, and then glows back outside of the body. It doesn't feel as like force fields y to me. And then that's where in that aura, you can experience other things like if someone's putting on an actor acting in their insecurities or acting in their lack or in their, you know, there's a lot of other things that create masks. And so I think when your authenticity shrinks, or your ability to exude that shrinks, that's when there's room for masks and other things to come in. But when you're
Mm.
living in that flow and that authenticity, and I know who I am, I trust who I am, I embrace all aspects of myself, not just the good parts. Then it becomes this like outward aura that is impenetrable. That's like the force fields is up and it's like on. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you
That was a
followed that.
that was a great visualization. I was picturing a human design chart outline of a body, and I followed you. I followed you every step.
Okay, good.
So, do you feel like authenticity is something that well, I'm not going to answer it for you. I'll tell you what my impression of you is in this space, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Do you feel like, in a business sense, that your authenticity is something you've had to pay attention to or nurture or battle with in any way?
100%. I mean, I think that this goes back to like how I moved into what I'm doing now, which we cover on a previous episode. So listen to that if you want to hear my whole journey and how I got started. But I think that there was a lot of time that I was living based on what I thought I should be doing and not based on an internal compass. And then once I found my internal compass and once I created that dialogue with myself, now I feel like I am embodied. I've got the force field up, but it took a lot of tries. And that was not just in business, that was in a lot of things. Like I remember the first time I wore a crop top in public and I was like in the Uber, I was like, this was a horrible idea. Like this, like I was just all the insecurities and all the things. This was way before my current dopamine dressing era, but I was like just in my mind about, okay, well, this feels like me, but it's like very scary. And so I remember those like steps that I took to like into my authenticity and being like, this is something that I need to do. And so it was the same the first time I did a group tarot reading. I did a 3-hour tarot reading at the one hotel, 5-minute readings. And I had never done readings for that long. I had never done readings that I'd been paid for before. And I had never done like that many readings for strangers that I was like, but it felt authentic. So I stepped into it, but it was very scary. So I think that there's like for me, there's been in all aspects a moment of this doesn't feel authentic. There's that self-realization, you know, like realizing you have the problem and speaking it out loud. Admitting that where you're not being authentic. And then there's the like what is authentic? What feels authentic to me? And then there's the how can I step into that? And then once you step into it, it's how do I reinforce that? How do I grow that light outward and outward and outward? And so with the crop top turned into, well, I'm going to wear outfits where I don't care if my belly line is showing, or I'm going to wear outfits that are like horizontal stripes or bright colors, or I don't need to dress all in black because I am in a bigger body. There was just so many like incremental things that I could embody how I was feeling inside. So I think to me it's been a journey of connecting. once I was like, this is who I am, connecting that outwardly and then conveying it outwardly. And so I think those are two steps. So connecting to it and being like doing it, in my home or doing things that feel comfortable for me, and then outwardly proclaiming it, embodying it, putting it out in the world. So in business, the first time I called myself an astrologer in public, again, very uncomfortable. I'm like, these people are going to think I'm a wackadoodle. Like, and so I found myself like being like, well, I'm an astrologer, but I used to work at Twitter, like disclaimering, being like, I'm not,
Mm.
I have authority. I'm a like I'm an intelligent person who like knows what they're doing. It was not a coming from a I don't want to be categorized with what I think other people stereotype astrologers as. It was like I wanted people to understand. I wanted people to connect with my authenticity. And it felt like because I wasn't so embodied and this is what I do, this is my expertise, this is my magic, this is my dharma, this is like everything that I am now. It felt like I was like fumbling around. How do I describe who I am? And then it's like, wait, I don't have to describe who I am. I just can show up that way and it comes through and what I'm talking about, how like my whole being, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like what you touched on is kind of the shadow side of authenticity, which is all of the I should be things. Like
Mm-hmm.
I should dress this way, or I should disclaimer my job description, or I should, wear a suit if I'm a lawyer, or I should not talk about these things
Mm-hmm.
in a business context. It's all of those things that are like the antithesis of authenticity or barriers to maybe being more authentic. Really quickly, I wanted to hop in here and tell you something that you probably already know if you're listening to this podcast, but just in case you don't, Katie and I are hosting the first annual Soulward Summit conference. This is a business conference for mindful leaders, for mindful achievers, for business owners who know that they should listen to their intuition, who know they shouldn't get stuck in hustle culture mode, but sometimes they do, and you want to really incorporate your intrinsic gifts, your own authenticity into your business and your brand and take it to the next iteration of your dream. And so if you're interested, head to soulwardsummit.com and you'll get all of the details there on tickets and ticket options. We hope to see you there.
Yeah, I think there's limitations that you put on yourself because the I can't comes from somewhere, right? No one ever told me I couldn't, like specifically me, you can't wear a crop top. No one told me that. No one's ever said astrology is stupid to me. I mean, I've definitely had I don't know if I believe in that, which is a whole other discussion, but there's no one, and even if someone had, like, no one has agency over my life but me. So even if someone did tell me that, like, why am I subscribing to what their rules are, which could be very authentic to them. Like maybe I'm just reacting to a rule they made for themselves to be in their own authenticity. Or maybe I'm reacting to their own limiting belief or their own like programmed mindset or cultural belief but either way, when I look back at these moments where I was like, no, I'm stepping into my own self and I'm like embodying that, the fear wasn't internal, it was external. It's like, what are people going to think? Or how am I going to be received? How is this going to be received by my friends, by my family, by the society at large? And we have this innate like herd mentality, right? This goes back to Neanderthalism, like, right? If you don't have that tribe of like hunters and gatherers in your cave, like if you're isolated, you die. So like it's a very deep program, again, that like fear response. Oh, my light died. There we go. Then you then you live in that, right? You live in that fear response. That's a very real feeling, but then it's recognizing, no, I'm not, if I wear a crop top, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to be isolated from like life, like necessary life things. I'm not going to stop breathing. I'm not going to lose access to like food or water. Like, so yeah, it's really recognizing that difference in that mindset.
For sure.
Okay, plugged in my light so it won't keep turning off. How do you navigate that, or how have you navigated that? What has been your journey towards authenticity? What have you I'm sure you have stories too of some of the similar things I just talked about.
Yeah. I mean, most directly, I completely started a new Instagram account from scratch in January of 2024. And I was like, you know what? I started my old Instagram account 7 years ago before I even was really, I won't say comfortable in my own skin, but before I was as self aware as I am now, maybe, and more aware of the things that make me me. And so I started a fresh Instagram account and persona, the Lunar Lawyer. And I was like, I'm just gonna do this. And it's okay if I'm not talking about things using a lot of legal jargon or wearing a blazer or doing all the things that, yes, lawyers, quote unquote, should do. And maybe I'll pull out like a card deck and maybe I'll pull out some crystals and it's fine. It's not. And I think the flip side benefit, I guess if that's the right word, or the reward from that is, number one, it's easier to show up when I feel comfortable that I'm just like, this is me, Greatest Showman style.
Mhm.
And number two, people see that comfort and they see that authenticity. I am drawn to people like you, whoever else, that I can see are being so authentic because it kind of plays into that core value I have of the opposite of being fake. It's like, she is confident. She knows who she is. She shows up as who she is. And I love and appreciate that. And so people can tell when you are exuding that authenticity, when you're not putting up a facade and you're just like, hey, this is me. Like, this is who I am. And if you want to work with me, great.
It's amazing what that feedback is, right? Once you're showing up as yourself, right? I feel like you are rewarded with more genuine, deeper connections. You're rewarded with, there's like an immediate universal, like universe gives you a high five for doing, like being you, right? So for me, like when I wore that crop top, every single person was like, you look amazing. Like, what? Did you do something different? Every time I've stepped into a newer embodied version of myself, I will get these compliments from other people that, and generally they're like, it comes in like you look amazing, but they're not reacting to a change in my physical appearance did not change. They're reacting to that what I'm exuding, that aura, that glow, right? So I remember there being a like, when I first started like really leaning in, getting just a lot of even close people to me being like, did you do something? You just see, you're like your vibe is amazing. Or I would get people who would come up to me in the wild being like, are you a celebrity by chance? I'm like, no, no. No, I'm not. But people can sense it, right? And so it's not about showing up authentically to get external validation. Like it always is, again, that comes back to that inner glow, but people can sense when that glow is sort of, 3 feet outside of yourself as this like massive force field, and they want to bask in it, right? Like people want to be in your glow. They want to experience your magic. They want to, like, that is a feel good vibe. So that's a motivator for me, or was a motivator as I was like in that period of where it was maybe like shrinking and growing and shrinking, like that fluctuation period, right? I would be like, oh, well, I can tell energetically when I'm in my own embodiment, and other people can too. It's just infectious, right? And so now it feels less like a, oh man, like I'm like really vibing today. And it feels more like that feels more like a constant energy. Not that we all don't go through days where those past programming or mindsets like come in and I feel my glow shrinks a little bit, or like my authenticity, I'll fall back into old habits. But more often than not now, that aura is solid, and authenticity is also one of my core values. So I think that's just awesome.
That's
Can't believe we've never
just
talked
cute.
about that before.
I know we really should. That's just cute. And I think going back to what you were saying too about safety and that like innate animalistic sense that we all
Mhm.
have, it's I want to say that it's okay to not feel like your biggest glowiest self in
Yeah.
every environment. I feel like environment has a lot to do with it. If
Mhm.
I'm going to a networking event and it's like insurance, mortgage people, and like real estate investors, I'm going to show up a little differently. I'm
Mhm.
not going to say I serve coaches and healers and spiritual entrepreneurs. I might just start with I'm a lawyer for
Yeah.
small businesses. And depending on who I'm talking to, you read the room a little bit. And depending on who I'm talking to, if their eyes glaze over, it's like, all right, nice to meet you. And
Mhm.
but someone else might, as you talk to them, you uncover a little bit more. So that was the little disclaimer I wanted to add, is that of course environment plays into how you're showing up.
100%. And I think there's also like you can show up authentically without that, like you being your glowiest, right? Like you said.
Yeah.
So you can still show up authentically. And then to me, it's about that vibe check. So I do the same thing. But I remember when I was first sort of embodying, I'm an astrologer, I was like, I'm an astrologer. And then it actually felt very inauthentic to me to be saying that, because in certain environments, because it would then lead to the just conversations that didn't feel like it was like that connection, and that like it didn't feel like my vibe, right? It was like, oh, well, I don't really believe in that, or like, can you tell me what sign I am, like very, which to get in those conversations, it feels that doesn't feel like my most authentic self, to be in a position where I feel like I have to defend who I am. But I realized that I was like putting myself in those positions, right? By claiming I'm an astrologer. So it actually feels more authentic to me now. I've been doing work on this recently where I'm like, well, astrology is a tool that I use, but right now in this version of myself, my most authentic self is that I'm an entrepreneur who who supports soulpreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur who helps other entrepreneurs. And that is authentic to me. That feels like something that that can move with the environments that I'm in. But I needed to go through what masks was I using? What crutches were I using in those different environments to get to that point? And I think that there's always, I see it as like a pendulum. I always am overcorrecting, right? So like I was like disclaimering that I was in corporate America. Then I was like, I'm an astrologer and I do tarot and blah blah blah. And I was like way in the other direction. And at the end of the day, like neither of those things um help connect or help other people understand who I am any better, right? So now I'm more focused on, well, what feels authentic as what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, who I am, and that's what I communicate. So I think it's not about as long as you're not shrinking yourself in an inauthentic way. I think there's moments to be, receiving. There's moments to be like you can be authentically radiating, but be quieter or smaller in a room, or there it does, those two are not connected, right? They're not connected to each other, where it has to be when you're authentic, you're like 200% all the time, right?
Mhm. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad that you said that about kind of like swinging too far, because something that I did over the last year that took me a while to realize was, okay, I've come into my zone. I'm in the flow. I feel like myself. I'm doing all these things. And somehow tying that to, this is a little bit of a tangent, where we're going to go with it. Somehow tying that to, okay, who do I want to work with? And niching down who I'm talking to too much, because there might be like a pen company that vibes with me, that's not technically a coach or a healer or a spiritual entrepreneur, but because of the language that I've used or the marketing that I've been doing, they feel like maybe I wouldn't want to work with them. And so what I kind of have realized over the course of this last year is that your niche has a lot to do with you showing up authentically. And so long as you are showing up as you, that's your niche. Anyone who is drawn to you as you're showing up authentically is your niche. Was that too much of a tangent?
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think that that brings up a really interesting point around you can box yourself in trying to be authentic, right? So, being like, oh, I'm, corporate America product designer, VP of whatever. That felt like a container, like a box that I didn't want to be in, right? And then I put myself in another box. And then I was like, okay, well, this now, like, this doesn't fit anymore. And so I think and even niching down, everyone niche down, niche down. I am a manifestor. I create 9 million things a day. Like, I don't like, it's for me, I don't want my life to be about picking one thing and niching down. And so my like life hack way around that is, if I'm embodied in my authenticity, I can do whatever is authentic to me within that realm, and people will connect with me and be drawn to me based on my energy, not based on a particular service or based on a particular tool or based on a particular thing. And so, like, to me, I want that like expansive energy. Like, I don't want there to be those bounding boxes around who I am, what I'm doing, and how I approach like my business, right? So even in the language that I'm using now, yes, I am doing the how is like one-on-one coaching for now. And for now, I'm focusing on systems and strategy and signature branding and stuff like that. But what I do, who I am, I support soulpreneurs, is that is a niche, but it's not like there's a lot that I can do within that. Like, that I could focus on the same three things in a group program, in a workshop, in a course. The how can change. And then also the what can change. I have a laundry list of things that I want to create that are extensions of of those three pillars. And I want to create more pillars. And like that, I feel like I've landed now in a spot where I'm more inspired by my own embodiment and like what I'm vibing with, instead of that space of reacting to what I should be doing, or what I think what
The
my
external.
yeah, the external, like what is my audience expecting from me? I'm like, no, I threw that all out the window. I'm like, this is what I feel called to do right now. This is it.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that funny? It all just, yeah, the external is what we talked about 15 minutes ago in terms of things that affect your authenticity.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, external input, external data is still very important, but having it not be the driver. So having that
Yeah.
internal feedback loop being the primary source of like, why am I doing something? Then you still need so for example, building in those feedback loops to help you move forward is very important. So at the end of a project, I'll do, here's what we covered, here's what we started, here's where we got to. How did you feel about, here's a testimonial, like give me a testimonial, give me feedback on what went well, what could I change? And that's input that then I can have an internal conversation about. Like, how do I feel like the changes that they said that I should make? Do those feel authentic to the direction that I want to go? I mean, that was something I struggled with a lot, with just people's ideas of how an astrologer works today. When I was first navigating this, there was a lot of, well, you should create, print out like a birth chart books, or like physical things that I can like deep dive into, all the aspects of myself. Which, yes, I know that people want that. But when I feedback loop on myself internally, I'm like, well, I'm not really interested in talking through any health astrology. I like some relationship astrology, but really more when it comes to like dynamics, team dynamics, things like that. I honestly don't really like creating massive physical books. I did a lot of extensive layout stuff in my earlier design years, and I find it such a long process, so overwhelming. Like I'm like, it's against the like bite size, easy to digest thing. There's just so many things.
Mhm.
So I had that conversation with myself of, okay, well, these are things I don't is a no, but like, how do I take that feedback and make it into something that works in my world? And so that's where things like the tools that I make come into play. So how can I give people that sort of customized guidance, but in my way, not in like the way that they're saying that I should do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's been fun to see how Be Good Guide has evolved, because you were doing the full moon events for a while.
Hmm.
And I mean, take me through what it looked like when you stopped doing those events.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the process of I would do the event. People would come, they'd bring their birth charts. I would talk about what was going on in the sky for that particular lunation, how that impacts their chart specifically, and then we would do like an exercise to help integrate that, right? And so I felt like I was doing all of this pre-work for not that many people, for not that much money, it felt like a big energy push, and I was getting glimmers of the this is fulfilling, but it wasn't like a full body, yes, this is like firing on all cylinders.
Mhm.
And so I made the decision to take a step back from that and be like, what are the things that light me up about this? The like exercises workshop portion, yes, and that is evolving into something like I have so many different avenues that same thing is going to be it's integrated in my one-on-one coaching. I'm working on things where I can do that at scale, where it's not constrained to in person at a particular time at a particular, event. But there was an event that I had thrown, or that I had scheduled, and I had only one person sign up, and then they ended up missing it. And I was like, this is a sign. And I was like in a beautiful space. So I spent that time like taking B-roll photos, and I utilized that time, but I was like, this is a lesson in trust, that like this is part of the process. So I was like, immediately I was like, this is not a failure. This is like something that's meant to happen to give me data to incorporate going forward. And then I did the internal audit of what if this is stuff that lights me up? What gives me that full body yes versus what feels like I'm pushing against the flow, right? And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
restructured. I started the membership so that you have ongoing guidance. I did all sorts of things that came out of that exercise, right? So it's all about those stepping stones, and then reintegrating, evaluating, auditing, reflecting, and then the next iteration felt so like iterations, because like basically like I split it into a bunch of pieces and integrated it into all sorts of areas of my business, but they all felt more authentic, more like full body yeses.
Mhm. Well, and I was curious if you would touch on this, because it's, to me, what you're saying is you were basically like your own client. And we talked a couple of weeks ago when I interviewed you about purpose. And so I it sounds like authenticity and purpose can go hand in hand, and checking back into, okay, on the purpose side, is this bringing me joy? Is this in connection with my values? And working in that way results in you showing up in an authentic way.
Yeah, I mean, everything to me comes back to how well I'm connected with my own internal compass, my own internal dialogue, my own like way of being who I am completely. Like and understanding and embodying that. Even things that I'm like, I know that I want to work on XYZ. I know I want to continue working on being more vulnerable. I know I want to work on, I have a whole laundry list with my therapist, but that doesn't take away from that current embodiment of where I'm at now, and that then becomes a direction for everything. That tells me that I can trust myself and have confidence in anything I'm doing, in who I'm connecting with, in what I'm building. It works in any area of my life. Does this feel aligned? Does this feel like me? And do I feel fulfilled? And sometimes it's a lesson and I'm like, okay, well that could be more fulfilling, or definitely don't want to do that ever again. But it's all that feedback loop but I have that core of that internal knowing and internal confidence. So I have unwavering trust and confidence in myself. And that dictates everything else in my life.
Yeah.
That is the foundation for exuding that authenticity, for following my purpose, for everything.
And what I want to say as we kind of wrap up this conversation is that that is a huge pillar of Soulward Summit, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, the stepping into your magic, into your power, and then seeing other people. I think maybe this is one thing along the external stuff. There's external impact that can be negative, that can lead to like escapism or like feeling down on yourself. And then there's external impact that can be such expanders, and that is Soulward Summit. All these 19 experts, they are living in their authenticity. They are living in their purpose. They are making things happen on their own path. And to be able to feel that energy in the room, I mean, like you said, you can feel when there's someone authentic. Okay, well, this is going to be like that times 10. Like the whole building is going to be lit up.
Yes.
Energetically.
And talk
So
about a safe environment.
so I think there's just like surrounding yourself with other people that feel like expanders and feel that glow help you grow your glow. And that
Yeah, grow your glow.
I've never said that before. That felt channeled. We're gonna put that on a sticker.
Well, this is amazing. Let's do it again. We're going to do it again. But yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for the conversation. I could go on, as you know, I could go on authenticity forever, but I just think it's so important to have these conversations that really dive into the not just it's like business adjacent, it's all the things that inform your business and how you show up in your business and how you show up in your life. So this is amazing. Thank you, Maria. And until next time.
Until next time. We hope you loved that conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review this episode. We appreciate it so much, and we will see you next time.